Dodgers fans, sit down for this one, because what just happened is going to shake the entire clubhouse. In this fictional storyline, Will Smith is stepping away from the team permanently this season, and in his place, a new catcher signs a 4-year deal. And the reason behind it? Even wilder than the move itself. What do you make of this one? Okay, so let's set the scene for our story here. This isn't just a roster shuffle, in this version of events, it's framed as a full identity shift behind the plate. Will Smith has been the Dodgers guy back there for years. He's caught no-hitters, called games during a championship run, built trust with basically every arm on that staff. So when a storyline like Smith is out permanently mid-season gets floated, the first reaction from anyone imagining this is, something's wrong. And in our fictional world, it's not injury, it's not performance. It's something stranger. Right, and that's where the story gets its hook, the fictional Roberts quote making the rounds. Shohei designated him as catcher for his next start. Break that down for us. So in this imagined scenario, the idea is that Ohtani, as the starting pitcher, essentially handpicks his own personal catcher for an outing, and the org restructures around that choice. It's a fun premise because it plays with something real. Elite pitchers really do have preferred catchers. Certain arms throw better to certain gloves, different setup, different game calling rhythm, different comfort level on close pitches. So the fictional version just takes that real dynamic and cranks it to the extreme. What if a two-way superstar had so much influence that an entire depth chart bent around his personal comfort? And in the story, the incoming catcher isn't thrilled about it either. There's a refuses to be Ohtani's catcher angle. Why would that make sense dramatically? Because catching a guy like a fictionalized Ohtani is genuinely a nightmare assignment if you think about it. This is a pitcher throwing high 90s with a sweeper that breaks late and hard. Calling that game, blocking that in the dirt, staying locked in for 6+ innings against elite lineups, that's a specific kind of pressure. So narratively, having a new catcher hesitate isn't villainizing anybody, it's just realistic tension. Nobody wants to be the guy remembered for a passed ball on strike 3 in a big spot. That reluctance is what makes the story feel grounded even though the premise is invented. So walk us through how you'd imagine this playing out if it were real. Where does Smith go in the story? In this version, I'd frame it less as Smith gets exiled, and more as a symbolic passing of the torch. Maybe he shifts into a mentorship role, works with the new catcher on receiving mechanics for a starter with that kind of velocity and movement. That's actually more compelling than just writing him off the roster. It keeps him relevant to the story instead of making him a footnote. The emotional beat isn't Smith is bad. It's the org is building something new around its biggest star, and even a proven vet has to adapt. And the reaction from a fictional Ohtani, what's the emotional core there? This is where I'd lean into something unexpected, like you said. Instead of him celebrating getting his way, imagine Ohtani actually uncomfortable with the idea that a teammate's role changed because of him. That's more interesting and more true to how these superstar-adjacent stories usually land emotionally. The star doesn't want to be seen as the reason someone else gets pushed aside. So in the story, maybe he goes out of his way to publicly credit Smith, insists the new catcher earned the job on his own terms, tries to defuse the narrative that he forced anything. That kind of humility beat is what makes fictional superstar storylines feel human instead of cartoonish. So if you were building the emotional arc of this fictional saga episode by episode, what's the shape of it? 3-part shape, honestly. Part 1 is the shock, the announcement itself, the disbelief, fans and teammates reacting to a move that seems to come out of nowhere. Part 2 is the friction, the new catcher's hesitation, the pressure of stepping into a spotlight role, maybe a rocky first start where the chemistry isn't there yet. Part 3 is the resolution, Ohtani stepping in, taking responsibility for the pressure he's inadvertently created, Smith mentoring instead of resenting, and the new catcher earning real trust through a big moment behind the plate. That arc gives you stakes, conflict, and a payoff, which is what keeps a fictional storyline like this bingeable instead of just a one-off shock headline. What about the next start itself? How would you dramatize that first game with the new battery? I'd build it around small details, the way Rio broadcasts do. First pitch. Does the new catcher set up too far outside because he's overcompensating for the movement he's heard about? Does Ohtani shake off a sign early to establish who's really calling the shots, or does he trust the rookie completely to build his confidence? Maybe there's a moment where a low sweeper in the dirt gets blocked clean, and that's the turning point. The dugout exhales, the catcher exhales, and suddenly the tension from the whole storyline releases in one play. That's the kind of moment fictional sports drama lives on. Last question, what's the takeaway you'd want fans to leave this fictional story with? That even at the highest level, chemistry isn't guaranteed by talent alone, it's built. In our story, the emergency isn't really about anger or dysfunction, it's about an org and a group of players adjusting to having a generational talent in the middle of everything, and everyone figuring out how to fit around that gravity. It's a story about adaptation, not conflict. And honestly, that's why fictional. What if storylines like this resonate with fans? They let you imagine the emotional stakes behind the stats, even when the specific event never happened.